All right. We are back for Roundtable Dolphins. Excuse me, as my voice cracks. Episode number 23. I am once again joined by Billie, Melissa, and Buddy, and we're gonna dive right into Dolphins football. Whole lot going on, especially well into the excuse me, sorry. Oh my god. Well into the evening last night. The Dolphins got a huge contract done with Mr. Aaron Brewer, center. This is a 3 year. Oh my God, hold on. I got to pull up the 3 year, $52.5 million extension that has 37 million guaranteed. And now we'll be paying him 17.5 million per year, which now places Aaron Brewer as the third highest center in the entire league. Of course, we know that Tyler Linderbaum has blown everybody out of the water with 27 million given by the Raiders. They overpaid, whatever. We won't get into that. And then right below him is Kansas City Chiefs center Creed Humphrey, who's getting paid 18 million, and now you got 17.5. You got Mr. Aaron Brewer. This is a huge deal for the Dolphins. He's been described as a foundational piece, building block, yada yada, by John Eric Sullivan. We talked about this before on the pod, and of the players that have been discussed as that, two of which have already been extended, running back Devon Achane and now center Aaron Brewer. Linebacker Jordan Brooks could be the next one on the slate. We'll see what happens there. There's been too many conversations and reports and rumors about him potentially still being on the trading block, which I hope is not really the case, because getting rid of a defensive leader like that right now would not make a whole lot of sense for the Dolphins. But anything can happen. The only player that was described as being a foundational piece that got traded was Jalen Waddle, of course, as we know, was sent to the Denver Broncos for a first round pick and more. But regardless of all of that, Aaron Brewer is now locked up through the 2029 season. He's been an integral part of this Dolphins team. The dude went from being an undrafted free agent to becoming an all-pro, and now he got paid big bucks by the Dolphins. They lock him up alongside Devon Achane, who's also, I think, signed through the 2030 season. So, this is huge. He's been a big reason why Devon Achane has been so good. Obviously Devon Achane is good, but I mean, like, you get a good center, as we know, you get a good center in the building, able to push those lanes. They're the first contact for the offensive line, and huge deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see Brewer secured. Obviously, he's clearly gelling with Malik Willis, and they see a vision for his future in Miami. And so it's good to just get that done and have one thing out the way. As we know, like we saw in Baltimore, it's very easy for good centers to get snapped up. They're so crucial in this day and age, especially as quarterbacks become more mobile, like we know Malik Willis is too. Like, that's going to be a huge part of their game. So I think it's really great to see that they've already got that done. As for Jordan Brooks, I think what we've seen from the Dolphins so far, I feel like, is they're taking everything like one step at a time. They're very much not trying to like just sign everyone left, right, center. Like, it's happening slowly but surely. So I think that is likely what is going to come next. It seems like he's still showing up and serving as a good leader. Doesn't seem to have like any animosity towards the team that would suggest that he's going to be traded. So I think he'll be that probably next step. Or maybe he feels he's better off somewhere else, better money. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think in terms of Brewer, I mean, I think it was a clear and obvious choice. Obviously, like you spoke on earlier, James, Sullivan views him as one of, the cornerstones of the team. So it was clear and obvious that, that they were going to sign him. It was a matter of when, not if. And I believe the same goes for Brooks as well. With Brewer, you keep him until you keep him through 2029, and clearly there's going to be, this year's going to be considered, to put it kind of lightly, a down year for the Dolphins. But the hope is 2027, 2028, that's when they start to get their juices flowing per se, right, and get back to being competitive. And you're going to need an anchor like Brewer, right? I mean, clearly, like you also brought up a big help a big help to Devon Achane, and eventually a big help to Malik Willis, who's going into his first year as a starting quarterback. There's a lot of question marks there, but as long as he's protected and as he's healthy, then I think we'll get to see the full version of what he can be, right? So the Brewer signing was great. The Brooks signing will come. We don't know when yet, but it will come. But I think this is just great news for the Dolphins, and I also like their approach too, Billy. They're taking it one step at a time. Obviously, they don't like to use the word rebuild, but we all know that's what it is. And I kind of like their approach into it, right? Because they're just doing everything one at a time, taking their time doing it. There's no rush into it. Clearly the roster is not built to win now, so they're going to take care of their pieces that they currently have, that they love, and they're going to go on from there.
Yeah, I don't know that it will come. We can't say that it's going to come. We can hope that it comes for Jordan Brooks, but there's no guarantee with this team right now,
Sure.
because they are in a rebuild, and they've done what they needed to do to shed those bigger contracts, or rather get rid of the players, not get rid of, but rather the players they believe that were too expensive. It is what it is. It's a business. We understand that. But, Jordan Brooks being signed is a top priority. We'll see if that gets done before training camp or if that gets done before week 1. Again, it would not make a lot of sense for Jordan Brooks not to get a new deal. He is one of those other building blocks that John Eric Sullivan mentioned. And yeah, so I believe that they will do so. So far, he's kept his word about that, but we don't know what other teams are looking at. I know the Cowboys were circling around Jordan Brooks for a while there, and I don't know any other teams that are currently involved as much as the Cowboys were, rather mentioned. And Jerry Jones may offer a second round pick and more for him, or whatever the case may be, or even a first round pick if that's the case. The Dolphins obviously know that if they get first round picks, they're going to say yeah, because they are aiming towards the 2027 season and beyond that with their healthy cap situation after cutting Tua Tagovailoa, after cutting Bradley Chubb, after trading Minka Fitzpatrick, trading Jalen Phillips back in November 2025 during the trade deadline. So it's all for a purpose here. Again, I don't think that they're gonna get rid of Jordan Brooks unless somebody comes with a ridiculous offer, but he is a high priority, and it's probably better to pay him now as opposed to paying him in 2027 offseason, because then he's probably going to command an even bigger contract if he's still on the same production as he was in 2026, which 2025, excuse me. Led the NFL in tackles. Didn't get a Pro Bowl nod, which was the weirdest thing ever, but got nominated to the got an All Pro nomination, or excuse me, nod. So I don't know, but Jordan Brooks should be the next person on the docket to get that deal. If the Dolphins don't do it, I think that's going to be kind of a big fumble for John Eric Sullivan. But thus far, the moves that he's made have made sense, and yeah.
Yeah, I read he's the second highest paid player on the team, but like at a good deal. So he might, exactly what you're saying about getting that done sooner rather than later. That price is only going to climb as people continue to get paid around the league. So it would make sense for them to do it now if they are going to do it at all, but he could be a good trade piece in the future, let alone right now. So I guess we'll see.
I mean, yeah, when you're looking at it that way, if they do intend on, because he is older, if they do intend on, he's already been in the league 6 years. And so, the one thing that for sure the Dolphins have been doing is getting rid of the older players. Obviously, they brought in some low-cost veterans, but the idea that John Eric Sullivan had said from the beginning, and Jeff Hafley, was to get younger and build through the draft, which they've done thus far. Obviously, you got players like Tutu Atwell, you got players like Jalen Tolbert that are veterans that are on the team, but if anybody that's in the 30-year-old range, not like Zach Sealer, I know is an outlier there, as is Aaron Brewer. I believe he's 29. But the point being, they're trying to get rid of those older players in a sense to get younger. And so that would be the only reason why, like you just said, Billy, for them to trade him, to see his value could skyrocket in 2027 offseason if he does even better. And then go, okay, look, Jordan Brooks, 2-time All-Pro. The dude led the league twice in tackles. We want a first-round pick and more, or whatever the case may be. So I think that would be the long game that they would be playing for him. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. As it stands right now, 2 of those building blocks got new contracts. Aaron Brewer is now locked up with Devon Achane. Big stuff there for the offense for sure. And even bigger, rather, not even bigger, but more good news for the offense is Malik Willis is continuing to impress everybody with his leadership capabilities. Obviously, this is something that we talked about before. He was one of the only veterans that showed up for rookie minicamp, introduced himself to the new draftees. He was there talking to them. He was putting in work that we saw in the offseason before the offseason program even started with Jalen Tolbert and Tutu Atwell trying to get, that chemistry built with his receivers. It's been great thus far seeing that, but even more so, Malik Washington, who is now going into his third year with the Dolphins, has kind of been seldom used, but could be a breakout candidate, has been tearing it up with Malik Willis during OTAs and minicamp, and he talked about that as well. He talked about how Willis has the receivers over and players over at his house. I think they said that they were watching a movie, but regardless, they're probably talking about football and how they can get better and things of that nature. And, Malik Willis has been described as being one of the first people in the building, one of the last people out of the building, and hounding Jeff Hafley with questions and Bobby Slowick with questions and asking the right questions and kind of being that annoying person that you have to be, especially in football, because this is a brand new offensive scheme to him, maybe not to everybody on the offensive, Devon Achane and Aaron Brewer, Patrick Paul, and the guys that have been here, because Bobby Slowick is a holdover. But it's really good to see that he's taking this thing very seriously, his opportunity to be that starting quarterback. I know that we've kind of talked about Quinn Ewers. I know, Billy, you've been the biggest proponent of saying, like, it's ridiculous that Malik Willis is not going to be the starter. I agree completely with that, but this is the kind of stuff that you need to see that proves that even further. Is like, okay, yeah, that is the presumption, but what is he doing to lock in that spot to make sure that he's going to be that guy under center during week one? And this is the kind of behavior that you need. This is the kind of behavior you need from a leader. This is the kind of behavior you need from a quarterback. He is now the de facto leader of this team, so he needs to be the one putting things together, talking about the installs, talking about whatever it is that he needs to get these guys going towards. Obviously, again, we've said this, nothing is going to matter until pads come on, really, but through OTAs and through minicamp, things have been looking good. He's building that chemistry with his receivers, and he just continued to receive praise from Jeff Hafley, who said he's better than he has seen when he was working with him in the Packers. Again, great to hear that. It's all not gonna matter until we see the pads come on and week one, but good stuff.
And this is why I told everyone to chill out. When we were talking last week about these interceptions and these like random tiny mini camps, OT, like, it's not a big deal. It's not right now. It's great, because sometimes actually this leadership stuff is just more important. This chemistry is more important. You can have a great quarterback who's not connecting with any of his weapons, and then that just completely falls through. It's great that he's taking to walk into a building where you're the new guy on the block and pick up all these veteran players and all these and the rookies too. Like, that takes a lot of bravery, to come in and say, look, like, I want to be the guy. I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to be asking the questions. I'm going to be doing the stuff that's annoying. Like, I think that for me speaks everything. It's showing promise. It's showing hunger. It's showing, a commitment to wanting to like build in Miami, because he knows that, like, if things go downhill next year, he could be on the chopping block. He could be sat on the bench behind a rookie quarterback or behind Quinn Ewers or whoever. So I think that this, more than anything right now, for where we are right now in the season, is the most like promising thing that he could be doing.
Yeah, and you still got a host of new people coming in the building too, and then they just signed Jalen Reagor, so you don't know who else may or may not be coming in the building on top of that. So it's up to him to be the one to reach out and be like, look, like, this is my offense, let's go. But yeah, again, good stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, Dolphins clearly believe in him signing that contract, right? But at the same time, he's really unproven, and I know we talked about that a lot. He's being handed the keys to the car, right? He's going to be the starting quarterback. I think this type of approach is not only who he is, but also too, he wants to prove to other people, like, yeah, I'm the guy in this building, right? And not just for 2026, but beyond, right? I mean, he's on essentially for 3 years, right? Guaranteed too. So, this is all he has right now. And, I think he's making the most of it. Clearly, he's made a great impression on Jeff Hafley. He's made a great impression on teammates on the offense, right? Like, Billy, I agree with you. The play will eventually come, but building that chemistry, that's what this is for. That's what in May, June, July, heading into like before preseason. That's why it's crucial and it's key to to have moments like that to build those types of relationships, right? Because you're gonna need that down the stretch. You're gonna need that to start the season, right? So it's very, very vital. I love this approach that Malik Willis is taking. I love that he's making a great impression, and I think if he does things right, which by the looks of it he is, eventually things are gonna fall in place, right? Now, will that lead to wins? We don't know. We don't know, right? But if they have that great chemistry and they prove that they can compete and that they're heading in the right direction, then front office will say, okay, maybe Malik Willis is that guy. Obviously, depending where they fall in the draft, they get a quarterback and whatnot. But it's his job is to make it harder for the front office, right, to let him go. And doing these types of things right now, I think that's in a step in a great direction for himself, and maybe eventually for the offense as well.
Yeah, I mean, time will tell. Since Dan Marino retired in 1999, the Dolphins have had nothing but terrible issues with quarterbacks. And, Chad Pennington was a bright spot. Chad Henne at one point was a bright spot. But all in all, the Dolphins have not had a quarterback.
Was for a minute.
Yeah. I mean, he was, but I mean, what I'm saying is there's no longevity here.
Yes.
The Tua is the longest tenured quarterback the Dolphins have had in quite a while. But even then, he's now on the Falcons, and he's now, he is what he is. Again, I was a fan of Tua. I was a fan of the Tua pick. We all know what happened. Whatever. We don't need to get into it. But the Dolphins need that franchise answer, and it could or could not be Malik Willis. We don't know yet. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't be. But the idea is to give him that 2 years to see. And at the very least, we know that if the Dolphins get a high draft pick in 2027, they can just as easily turn around and draft another quarterback. That's what the Arizona Cardinals did with Josh Rosen, and then they went and got Kyler Murray, which also didn't work out for them. But hey, it is what it is. But the idea is like, look, you got to keep going until you get the guy. Unfortunately, you got him. So
yeah, and he's seen them be completely unsentimental in that approach. Guys who have been around the building for years have gone, and not because of their play, but because of money issue and all kinds of things that he knows that like at any given second, like it could just flip for him and he won't be on the field anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to capitalize while you can capitalize, and this is his moment. Regardless of the tore down roster and the rebuild, whatever you want to call it, whatever we're calling it, reset, rebuild, or speed rebuild, I don't care. But the point being is this is your time now. Take advantage of it. He seems to be doing so thus far. It's going to be really exciting to see when the pads get on. Can the offense keep up with the defense? Because the defense is going to be the Dolphins' bright spot, shining thing in 2026 and probably beyond that. And a big reason is because those players are also, you have Jordan Brooks. You got players coming back. The secondary is still kind of up in the air. I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like, but we'll see. But on the defensive line, the players are taking things very seriously. So Zeek Biggers, who was the Dolphins draft pick last year, going into his second year, he has slimmed down quite a bit. I think he said that he came into the league at around 330. He might have been a little bit bigger than that, but he did say around 330. He's now down to 313, I believe it is. So he's slimmed down quite a bit. And the reason for that is when you're a defensive lineman, you're an edge rusher, whatever, what have you. Sometimes you have to slim down so you have better mobility. You have better jump off your 3-point stance or whatever it is that the Dolphins are going to have him do. And it's really interesting and great to see him doing that because he's taking it seriously. Conversely, Kenneth Grant is also doing the same thing. He did not reveal how much weight he has lost, but he has said that it's paying off, and he's also seeing a lot more mobility and a lot more speed coming off the line, all those great things. And truly, if those two guys can really band together and create a really strong defensive line, this is just going to bode well for the entirety of that Dolphins defense, especially because if you have a weaker secondary, as long as you have a better pass rush, you can kind of disguise that and make not put it all on the cornerback staff to go and stop everybody that the Dolphins have to play, which is like every good quarterback in the league in 2026 per their damn schedule. But it's good. Like, these guys are slimming down, they're taking it seriously, and they want to be dominant. They want to be those leaders. Kenneth Kenneth Grant also talked about that. He wants to be that leader in the locker room for the guys that have come in and all the younger players that are going into their second or third years or what have you. So yeah, slim down, more impactful. Let's see.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to have identified maybe something that wasn't working for them last year, whether they've watched their own tape and decided like, oh, you know, could have been quicker there. I could have done this. How do I get to do that? You know, do this. It is always a risk to do something like that because it does change the way that you play. I remember Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, he got bigger a couple years back and that impacted his running and that impacted the team in a big way. So whether, you know, that's a completely different circumstance from a linebacker doing that. But I think that this could only be good. I mean, when you feel good in your body, and that's what they've both said in their quotes, was saying, you know, they feel explosive, they feel good, they feel better, they feel more mobile. I don't really see how that can be a bad thing personally. And I think that, you know, like you said, I know you said that the defense probably going to be the shining spot, but I actually think that the offense are more likely going to be the ones that stand out this year. They seem to be the ones that are getting pieced together a little bit more. I think that they spent a lot of time, money, and focus on that. We'll see. Don't give me that face. We'll see in September.
Look, I like it. I understand what you're saying, but like I think
I didn't say better. I said the focus is big.
I'll say this. I think what it's going to come down to here is a secondary versus the wide receiver core. Which unit is going to perform better? And in that sense, that's going to be the better overall unit, in my opinion. Can these no-name wide receivers or unproven veterans truly emerge in this Bobby Slowick system? And also, can the secondary not get burnt? Because they don't have Rasul Douglas back. They don't have Jack Jones. Rasul Douglas could be added back. Not entirely sure on that just yet. But you got Dante Trader Jr. is starting to impress. You got Lonnie Johnson Jr., you got Storm Duck, Gigi Brents, but these guys were hurt. You got Ethan Robinson, Marco Wilson. It's like, yeah. So in that sense, since you know you apparently want to go to battle with me, let's go here.
I didn't want to go to battle you up in the face.
I'm just saying, it's okay. You know what? I like what you're saying, but we'll see. Hopefully, that competition across the board for both units just gets bred through what we're talking about. You see these guys slimming down. They're taking things seriously. They're in the building more. You know what I mean? And that can only bode well for the competition purposes and showing these younger players what you have to do to get your body right that have come in as well.
Yeah, and even though everyone around you and everyone around the league is saying rebuild, not expecting much, you know, soft yet, whatever, like that's not what players want to do, because if they want to go somewhere else next year, they better show up and out. You know, if they don't want to stay in Miami, if they feel that this isn't the future and they want to go somewhere where they have a chance of getting a ring, then the best thing you can do for yourself is just be the best guy on a team that's not performing as well. You know, that happens. And so doing what's best for their body is important. And to defend my honor, what I meant was they put for me, they're investing a lot in specifically the run game. And I think that they're going to invest heavily in that. And that's what we're going to see from this offense in the 2026 season.
I mean, you got Devon Achane, so yeah, of course.
Yeah, and you know, their first round pick was not expected. And that seemed to be, you know, a move to help that run game. And now paying Aaron Brewer, it's all coming together to look like that's what's happening.
Yeah. No, I mean, this team has zero margin for error. So in terms of like just going back to Grant and Biggers losing weight, you know, if they feel like, you know, that could be the difference between, I don't know, going as far as to say like a win and a loss or something like that, then hey, like go for it, right? I mean, clearly those two guys are very impactful for their defense. And I kind of agree with James in terms of like, I think the defense will dictate everything, because obviously like the cornerbacks and the secondary alone, that's like the biggest question. That's one of the biggest question marks outside of the wide receiver room, right? But like the thing that's working for the Dolphins right now, they have two of the three things that works for mostly teams that are building, which they're young, they're cheap. They have those two things. I don't know if they're quite talented yet. They have talented players. I don't know how that's all going to mesh together on defense.
Catching strays about these Dolphins all day.
I really
No,
love
no,
their pieces on defense. You know,
I
like
get, I
Jacob
get, I
Rodriguez.
get,
I'm
I
high
get what
on
he's
him.
saying. Overall, like, can the
Overall,
team come together and be talented
yes,
overall? Like, I
yes.
get what he's
They
saying.
have talented pieces. Can
Yeah.
can they be a talented group? Well, I guess maybe not a talented group, but can they be it together? Right? Can they be together? Because some talent could only get you so far sometimes, right? But obviously, I talked about before how I love their young piece, especially Jacob Rodriguez. I think he's going to be one of their better defenders. Just overall defender. Down the line, or maybe even sometime this year, right? So, you know, um, you know, the defense has potential, right? The offense outside of maybe like the wide receiver group right now, has obviously Achan's the focal point, and he deserves it all. But obviously they're gonna need more than that. So yeah, it's just I think the defense could get there. I just is it gonna get there by the end of the year? I certainly don't think it's gonna get there. First maybe like 8 weeks or whatnot. After that, once you started to get to Thanksgiving towards the end of the year, can it be something? I mean, it can be, sure, but yeah, I think like I'm totally like on James's side in terms of like the secondary is really going to be the tell.
I mean, you got to look at it this way. All of these players that have come in, the rookies and all the players that were brought in, everything, this is all developmental right now. So I don't think anybody can judge the Dolphins on wins or losses. Sure, if they get a bunch of wins and surprise everybody, right on. But that will be determined by the development of the players that, like you just said, Jacob Rodriguez, you got Chris Johnson in there, you got Caden Proctor in there. If these rookies coming in and these second year players and even the third year players that have been on the roster, like Malik Washington, who haven't quite got their fair shake yet, if we see them take a level above, that's going to be the success here for Jeff Hafley and this new system. It's not going to come down to wins and losses. I mean, again, wins are all that matter in the NFL anyway, but the moral victory here is, you don't want moral victories, but the moral victory here for the Dolphins will be if these players show that fight. Like I brought it up before, if they truly are a team that only gets 4 or 5 wins because they do have a really tough schedule and all that stuff, but if they get 4 or 5 wins and then those losses are very close, that's still a win in my book because you're seeing that fight from this team. And these are players that are, like we brought up before what Jeff Hafley said, a lot of these players are going to, and John Eric Sullivan said, a lot of these players are going to get playing time because this is how torn down this roster is. The Dolphins are going to benefit more because their rookies are going to get more playing time as opposed to other teams where they're third or fourth on the depth chart and they may not even really see the field except for maybe on special teams in 2026 for other teams that are more established. But so we'll see, what happens, but this again is just all the things that Jeff Hafley's been saying, and I know in this room and elsewhere he's been well respected on what he's been saying. He talked again about his first impressions of OTA and minicamp as the now leader of the Dolphins. He said, quote, I didn't have any expectations. I kind of wanted to come in open-minded. I like the way it went. I appreciate the coaches and how hard they work. We've been here since our last game ended. I appreciate all their hard work. I like the relationships we built with players. I like the guys we have on the team, the veterans we signed in free agency, young guys that we have drafted. I like the group. I like the buy-in. I like how hard they've worked, end quote. He also said, I think we'll learn more when we start playing real football. Again, this has to do with putting the pads on because, again, OTAs and minicamp, you're 7-on-7, 11-on-11, but nobody's hitting anybody, so you can't really truly stop what may or may not be coming in. You can't truly get a sack. You can't truly get an interception until you can go full speed at your teammates, but it's going to be offense versus defense. So, but that being said, again, this goes back to weeks ago or, maybe months at this point when we were talking about Jeff Hafley saying that he doesn't want to say that there's an identity yet because he doesn't know. Yeah. And it's really important to let this play out, let this go through training camp and really see, because then you're going to get to see a totality of that roster. Is the secondary really that bad? Is the wide receiver room really that bad? Are they better than we think? Are the secondary better than we think? Who's going to emerge? Who's going to start coming into those competitions and separating from the pack and being able to land a starting position, rookie or not?
But then I'm going to say kind of what I said for the Ravens and every team around the league that's had these major shifts at not just in Miami's case, not just a head coach, but a GM. I don't think training camp is really going to tell us anything because you have to give a building team grace throughout an entire season and then see how they come back next year and if they can build on what they've started. Because not only is this head coach new, defensive coordinators new, GMs new, most of the team is new. Like this is entirely new thing. And I think, training camp is all well and good and like, yeah, pads come on and you kind of see how you are against other, but these guys are still being careful with their bodies. They have a whole season of football to play out ahead. And I don't really think we are going to see an identity form or who this team really is until 8 weeks into the season and they've been through it and they've had to, rally around each other because they've lost a bunch of games or they have to keep going because they've won a bunch of games. Like it's different for teams like the Chiefs where there's like the Eagles where it's steady and they're coming back. That is kind of when you can see in training camp because this is just a well-oiled machine going again. But for teams like this, I think you just have to throw them to the wolves and see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been multiple instances where first-time head coaches have turned the organization around completely. Like look what Mike Vrabel did with the Patriots. Like they went to the Super Bowl.
But he
right
needed
away.
a year.
Yeah, but so you're right. You're absolutely right. Still, training camp is going to say a lot. You're going to see through training camp where this team really is, but still, you don't even know until, as Jeff Hafley put it, as you just brought up, adversity hits. Yeah. If you go on a 3-game losing streak, can you get a fourth? On that fourth game, can you get a win? We don't know. We won't know.
Or can you even keep trying? Can you show up the next week and actually put in a fight?
Again, to Mike McDaniel's credit, those players fought tooth and nail for him, regardless of what everybody said about Mike McDaniel. He lost the locker room, yada, yada, whatever. They fought tooth and nail. The 2025 season was very rough, but you saw the fight in these Dolphins players every single week. And will they do the same for Jeff Hafley? Can he lead these men? Can he get them rallied together? And again, like if, you can't bank on moral victories and losses or whatever, but if you see that competition and fight, that's still a win, in my opinion. Yeah.
I mean, look, this team's going to have some growing pains. It's just putting it simple, right? I mean, sure, they could look good in training camp. You can see little signs. Once week 1 gets rolling on, obviously their first 2 games are going to be on the road. Obviously they have the second toughest schedule, right? So, there's going to be a lot. And that's what happens. That's the situation that the Dolphins are in right now. They knew what they were getting themselves into, right? But on the same token, right? There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of optimism at the same time, right? Like, how are these young guys going to play out, right? And that's where the training camp part comes in, right? Like, who's going to stand out, right? Who's going to make a name for themselves, right? Are there going to be any surprise players in the draft? Or are there going to be any surprise undrafted free agents, right? Like, we see it almost all the time, right? Undrafted free agents, make a name for themselves and whatnot. So that part of training camp is going to be really fun. But yeah, I mean, honestly, really, I don't really expect much from the Dolphins in the first couple of weeks. I really want to see how their endurance plays out throughout the season. Really, how are they going to look week 13, right? Are they still going to keep on fighting, right? Are they still going to, are they going to keep games close, right? How's Malik Willis going to look, right? Is Devon Achane, obviously, I mean, we don't know, right? How the game plan is going to look, but clearly he's going to be the guy on offense, right? How is that going to keep up, right? Because obviously before he had Tyreek, he had Jalen Waddle, right? Now it's really him, especially with the unknown for the wide receivers, right? How is he going to look later on in the season, right? So, those are the things I'm looking for. I'm not looking for really the first couple weeks. I'm looking for, late, like heading into like November, December, and all that, how this team looks, right? How the defense is going to look. Did the defense get better? Is Malik Willis progressing, right? Is, I don't know, Malik Washington looking better, right? Is Tutu Atwell with a bigger role? How is he going to be, right? What he had less than 10 catches last year, something like that, right? With the Rams.
Yeah.
He's probably going to have like 10 attempts like in the first 2 games, maybe, right? Like
probably more than that, but you're right. No.
Probably more, right? I mean, like, it's just, there's like, I want to see those groups, especially with the unknowns, I want to see them improve, right? Yeah, sure, moral victories, James, like you said, they don't count for squat, right? But, are they getting better? That's the thing I want to see. And, with this culture, with Jeff Hafley, how he's approaching things, how John Eric Sullivan's approaching things, I think they're heading towards the right direction. So I want to say that they will get better, but, we'll see. The NFL is just such a mystery. Like we say all the time, it's year by year, right? It's week by week. So, that's what I'm looking at. And, I'm actually looking forward to that. So it should be fun.
Yeah,
they've got the perfect opportunity to show how resilient they can be, and that will build an identity. Just having to go through all of that will build an identity. They just need to build the right one.
No, exactly. And like I had brought it before, and to your point, Buddy, is they have so many low cost 1-year players that any one of them could emerge as a playmaker. Tutu Atwell, we know what Tutu Atwell is. He was kind of used on the Rams and then seldom used, and he got benched after he returned from his hamstring injury in 2025, and then they just didn't use him because they didn't really need to. But whatever, now you have that opportunity. Let's see what he does with it. And the same goes for Jalen Tolbert and everybody else that was brought in. You want to your point too, Billy, you want to make an impact, even if it is on another team in 2027. You do that right now. You do that for the Dolphins right now to put yourself in a better position, and then could lead to a bigger role or a bigger contract or another 1-year deal with the Dolphins in 2027. They're in a healthier cap space. They can bring in more players. They can draft more players and really build a sustained winner instead of just being in the middle for so long, not winning a playoff game in over 25 years. They need to change that. They did change that. They shook everything up. So let's see what happens. Yeah. But yeah, this has been Roundtable Dolphins episode number 22. I believe I said it was. And I totally forgot to do this at the top of the episode, so I'll do it now, especially to those if you waited and listened to this whole episode. Please go do all the social media things. Go like, subscribe to the channel, share this podcast if you like Dolphins football. Go join the official Roundtable Dolphins site. It'll be in the description of the video. Thank you, Billy. Thank you, Buddy, for joining me once again. We will be back next week as everybody kind of goes on break for 5 weeks until training camp starts. But we'll be here talking more about Dolphins football.